Hey guys, how's it going, and welcome back to another video regarding Assassin's Creed Origins. I'm doing another one. We never do these. That's sarcasm. We do them all the time. Stop trying to be funny, James. Stop with these black screen puns. I can't take it anymore. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about Origin's story today, and essentially how Bayek's story is going to unfold based on my opinions. I have my theories, I have my ideas, and I'm going to go through how Bayek's story is going to play out in my eyes. So, if you don't want, you know, potential... Not that I don't know anything about the story, I haven't fucking played the game. I'm just saying, based on what we've seen, I'm going to do my best to be like, this will be the story. I can't reveal any plot points because, again, I haven't played the game. So, I mean, it's not really going to be spoilers, but just in case, you're going to be like, oh, now I'm going to be thinking about that possibility, and now it won't shock me, or, you know, maybe. I don't know what I'm giving a spoiler warning for a theory. Let's just hop into my theory idea thing. So I'm going to structure this somewhat like a chilled comm video where I just sort of sit here, we have a discussion and we'll talk about it, so you don't necessarily have to watch the video because I'm just going to throw some gameplay up, and you can listen to it while you do whatever, whether you want to play some Destiny 2, whether you want to be collecting some collectibles on Assassin's Creed, or whether you're doing all the bonus stages on Sonic Mania. Special stages, not bonus stages. George said bonus stages and he got ripped to shreds. I'm correcting myself before that happens. Anyway, so we're going to go ahead, and I'm just going to go ahead and talk about my idea. So essentially, I think the game will open up, and we'll get an intro section where we get to play as Darius. And if you don't know who Darius is, he's an assassin that lived, I think it was around 300 BCE, came from Persia, made the first hidden blade. You can look him up on the wiki if you don't know who he is, then come back to the video so you have some context. But I think we're going to start off playing as Darius, because we know that Darius was written about in the Rosetta Stone, and I think that'll play a role somewhat in Bayek's construction of the Order, and I think Darius will play a vital role. Now, this introduction section could be somewhat like the Haytham sequences from Assassin's Creed 3, or it could also be like the opening to Assassin's Creed Unity, where we have a small mission inside of a historic area that's not the historic section for the main game. I think that's more likely. The only reason Haytham really worked to do longer sections, especially with the open world that we had, was simply because it was set in pretty much the exact same time period. So it's not really an issue when it comes to having another character run around in the same space that our protagonist would run around in. So that's the reason that worked, but having something set 300 years prior to the main game would cause a few complications, and I reckon we'll just get a linear section. I feel longer than Unity's, but I think it'll set up the character of Darius, the idea of assassins as people, the hidden blade. It'll introduce us to gameplay and then set up the story, and I think something that Darius does in that opening section will link to Bayek in his overall story of Assassin's Creed Origins, and what Darius does and what we experience as Darius will influence Bayek heavily in what he does throughout the game and the choices he makes and the quests that he has to go on and undertake within the story of Origins. Now, I do think Darius will play a vital role. I think that he'll come up now and again, but I don't think we'll play as him more than once. I think we'll play as him at the beginning, and that'll be it. But he'll be referenced a lot. Bayek will kind of think to him for guidance, and whether we get to see Darius and his experiences just simply through the Animus, or whether it's a piece of Eden that links to Bayek, and Bayek can literally see Darius' memories through a piece of Eden, similar to the way that Ezio saw Altair's memories through the memory seals in Revelations. I'm not yet sure how that'll play out. I just think Darius will be an influence on Bayek in some way. So next up, Bayek is of course a Medjay, or was a Medjay. They're kind of obsolete by this point in history. They don't really do anything anymore, but Bayek still upholds the principles of the Medjay. He still wants to protect the people, and he of course still has all of the various skills which you're going to hone throughout the game. He's still, you know, an experienced fighter. He's very good at stealth. He's very good, you know, with the people and things like that. He's very good at parkour and free running, because that was part of his job. However, At this point in the game, obviously, he doesn't use those to protect the Pharaoh anymore. That's not really what he does, but he can use those to help the people nonetheless. And you're going to start off with base skills that obviously you'll have at the beginning of the game, just being a Magi. But as you progress through the game, you're going to get more and more abilities that you're going to get through the skill tree. You're going to upgrade your gear and stuff till you become an actual assassin. You're going to transform from a Magi to assassin over the course of the game through skills, through equipment, and through gear. And that's, of course, how we'll start off. I think that Bayek will be contacted by something for some reason. I think we already know that Siwa gets attacked, or taken over anyways, or influenced by some sort of corrupt ruler. I believe this is a thing we know of, and essentially I think that that or something else will prompt Bayek to, for some reason, go to Sneferu, is that how you say it? The Pharaoh, it's the second pyramid, Sneferu's tomb, which we've seen from gameplay. When Bayek enters, he says, "This is where my journey began." There's an ankh on a table that, it's not really a table, that you can't interact with, because it says, you know, this is only part of the main game. And so that leads me to believe that for some reason, towards the beginning of the game, whether that's he gets contacted in a dream, or whether he stumbles upon it, or whether it's because he gets, like, his town gets attacked, who knows? But there's a reason he'll go to Sneferu's tomb. And when he goes in, this will start his journey. And his journey could be started by finding a piece of Eden that contains memories of Darius. It could be finding a piece of Eden that contains the consciousness of a first Civ. Now, I don't think it's going to be Juno. I think it's going to be someone opposing Juno, whether that be Minerva, whether that be Jupiter, or whether that be someone like Consus, who we know put his consciousness into a shroud. Is it possible he put his consciousness into other objects created by the first civilization? We're not sure, but it could be a possibility. And I think that that will be the driving force for Bayek, because I think that the Order of the Ancients are going to be practically instruments of the First Will. People and an order that are working to benefit Juno and Juno's cause, and, you know, regaining her power and joining her with Aita, freeing her from the Grand Temple, etc. And so, I think Bayek's going to be fighting this order. I think the Templars will come into play at some point in the form of Julius Caesar, of Cleopatra, but very later down the line, and won't be the main threat that Bayek's going to be fighting. I think the main threat will mirror the modern day in terms of it always goes full circle. You know what I mean? The Assassins and Templars begin. Their main goal, however, originally was fighting the instruments of the First Will, was fighting Juno, but then they end up fighting each other throughout history to then lead us to the modern day, where we're now at that same point where we're fighting Juno, we're fighting the instruments of the First Will, we're fighting Aita, and that's something that's, you know, plagued history, is people fighting the instruments, because it always comes down to Juno is an enemy of humanity, and it's always going to come down to that. I think that's going to be a parallel with the modern day. I think the original origin story of the Assassins was actually not even fighting the Templars, it was fighting the instruments of the First Will, and that will then parallel and mirror what's happening in the modern day with the Assassins, and the Templars now are going to need to fight Juno, because she is the main threat to humanity. And I think that's a really nice parallel, it's a really nice mirror between the origin of the Assassin Brotherhood to the modern day Assassin Brotherhood, doing the same things, and everything, like I said, goes in a cycle, comes around in a circle, with Juno, with the instruments, with the Assassins and Templars, and I think that's very, very interesting. And I think that what's going to happen is, obviously I think he'll be contacted by a first Civ, possibly, which I believe won't be Juno. I think it'll be someone else that will be fighting against Juno, but I could be wrong, and he maybe will be deceived and decepted into fighting with Juno, but I kind of don't like the idea of that, so I hope that doesn't happen. But he'll be then sent on his mission to free Egypt and its areas of this country from this control of these tyrannical, evil people that are controlling the populace. I believe using pieces of Eden. I think people like the crocodile, people like the lizard, will be using pieces of Eden, whether that be a scepter, whether that be an ankh, whether that be an apple. I think the main dude will be using an apple. We've seen the Order of the Ancients holding apples of Eden. So I believe or an apple of Eden. So I believe the apple will be the main thing, but I think we will see other pieces of Eden. I think in a setting that we're in, I think it's impossible not to see various pieces of Eden being used, because this is a period where there's so much mysticism. There's so much, you know, they look to the gods for this. They thought the pharaohs were gods, and what reason would they think that unless they had pieces of Eden? I think that it makes a lot of sense. We're going to see a lot of people using Pieces of Eden to control the people, to oppress the people, and that's going to be Bayek's goal, to take out these people and stop their rule over his country and over his people, you know, that he wants to free. He wants to bring the peace, he wants to bring the freedom to the people. I don't think it's right, you know, that these people should be controlled by these rulers that have no claim to anything other than having this ancient artifact. And that's going to be one of the main things, you know. He's going to find a piece of Eden that will give him his journey, and then he'll realize that everyone else has pieces of Eden, so he'll have to track them down and kill these dudes one by one until he's freed Egypt from their rule and from their control. Now, I don't know whether he'll collect these pieces of Eden, you know, Yu-Gi-Oh style, collecting the Millennium items and storing them in the Millennium Stone thing, but I do think that, I mean, he'll have to take them, and I reckon you maybe after each assassination or whatever, you get to take these pieces of Eden, you get to go into a precursor tomb and hide them there. And that could be, you know, a nice little thing. Because, I mean, you know, we've had times before when you take pieces of Eden, you have to hide them in precursor temples like Ezio did for Desmond. So I think it'd be possible that Bayek, when he finds these pieces of Eden, he could take them to these precursor temples, and we get a little tomb section where you go through these parkour areas, we learn a bit more about the lore of the first Civ, etc., and we store them there, then we leave, get back on with our quest. I think that's very possible, and it'd be a nice gameplay element. I'm not holding my breath for it, but it is very possible that that could be the case. Now, I'm very disputed, I'm not really entirely certain whether we'll be fighting against Juno or unknowingly furthering her goal. I think it was okay to unknowingly further her goal when we didn't know her goal, when we were with Desmond and we weren't really sure whether she was good or bad, and then we were like, oh, she's bad, shit, we fucked up. But I think with Bayek, knowing that Juno's the enemy, I think it'd be really strange and frustrating for the player to have Bayek working alongside Juno. So it makes more sense to me narrative-wise that we'll be fighting against Juno with guidance from another first Civ. I'm thinking potentially Jupiter or Consus, because we've seen a lot of Minerva and her story was sort of concluded within Assassin's Creed 3. So I think it's very possible that we'll get Jupiter or Consus, who, you know, we know stored his consciousness in the Shroud, like I said, so is it possible other pieces of Eden to then guide Bayek? I think that could be very, very interesting, especially because he'll be able to give guidance on the pieces of Eden, since he's one of the people who created the pieces of Eden. So I think that's very likely, and that'd be a very interesting storyline, especially giving us insight into more First Civ and the technology and sort of their culture that Consus will be able to provide for us. So it makes more sense to me to be fighting against Juno. Plus, we've got these Juno events on the map. I doubt that'll be anything other than, you know, information possibly. I just don't want Bayek to be, like, deceived by Juno, because I think that'll be really irritating for the player. When you're sitting in the game, you're like, well, we know this is an enemy, Bayek's a fucking moron. Like, this is so stupid. So hopefully that's not the case. And lastly, this will cause Bayek to create the Order of the Assassin Brotherhood. Going on this journey and seeing that, I think, tyranny is all over, and it comes in many shapes and sizes and will always be around, there needs to be an order that keeps the peace and keeps the balance and allows free will to prosper and thrive. And I think that's what will start the Assassin Brotherhood, is Bayek's experience through this game. He'll be like, well, when I die, who's going to continue my work? We need an order that continues my work throughout generations to come and teaches people the right way, you know, to live. Or guides people in the right direction to take your life. And I think that's take your life, like kill yourself. That's not what I meant. And I think that will be Bayek's driving force. And I think that something that might aid that is his alliance with Cleopatra and Julius Caesar will probably go sour towards the end of the game, I think, because we know that Julius Caesar was a Templar, we know that he was assassinated by Brutus, who was an assassin, and we know that Cleopatra was assassinated by Amunet, another assassin. So it's safe to say they were Templars, which I'm pretty certain they were, but even if they're not, they held the ideologies of Templars. So I would say when they got into power, it's like Bayek was like, oh, now they're just the tyranny I was fighting against. And so it's like people are always going to be like that. People are always going to try and take control, and we need the Brotherhood there and in place in order to stop them in the future. And I think this entire journey will be Bayek's reasoning for creating that Brotherhood. So that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts and theories on this and origin story in the comment section below. If you want me to do more of these regarding possible storylines for the modern day, perhaps, then I can go ahead and do that if you enjoy me rambling about my ideas for story and things like that, because I love talking, and I assume that everyone else does too. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for watching. Hit that like button if you enjoyed. I appreciate it. Hit the subscribe button if you enjoyed. Consider going down to the description and checking out patreon.com/as always to support me and Tyler in our endeavors with our YouTube channel and with our business that we're starting up, doing extra podcasts, talking about Assassin's Creed, giving you guys topics, getting you on podcasts to talk to us and stuff like that. It's a really good time, and I'm going to need the extra monetary support after PewDiePie's little hiccup yesterday. Anyway, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.